Hey guys, welcome back to another Fly Tying Friday episode. We're going to be tying a pretty awesome streamer pattern, one of my favorites. It's a olive zonker, but it's got some UV iced up mixed in for the body. It makes it really pop out in the water, and I really enjoy fishing this fly. It's a really productive fly for me for both bass and trout, or really any predatory fish out there. So we'll go ahead and get started here, and we're starting off with some .02 lead wire. And we're going to wrap about a third of the hook shank with this. And just go ahead and slide that up to hold your cone head. And alright, and for this we're going to be using some gel spun thread. This is 200. 200. And this stuff, if you haven't used it before, it's a little difficult to work with sometimes just because it's slick, but it is tough as nails. You can really crank on this stuff and really just bring those materials in nice and close and solid and put a ton of pressure on it without breaking the thread. So alright, we're going to start off with an olive Magnum Zonker barred. This is a hairline, I believe, but it's the Magnum size. And we're just going to measure out. I like the tail to be about a hook shank length. Sometimes these foul up when you're fishing them, so you might have to trim that back a little bit on the water. I just kind of play that by ear, but usually I tie them pretty long. And what I like to do on the end of this is actually just cut this to a point, kind of taper that end, and it gives it a tapered look towards the end of the tail. So we're just gonna cut that down to a point and pull your loose fibers out. It just kind of makes that tail nice and thin and gives it a finished look. So alright, now we're gonna just find where our thread's at there and wet our fingers down and just comb those fibers forward. Once we got those kind of pulled forward, I'm going to just do a couple really tight wraps. 1, 2, 3 on the hook, and that's solid as a rock, and we'll advance our thread forward. And for this body we're going to do a little bit different technique. It's just called a dubbing loop. If you're not familiar with it, you just make a loop of thread, and we're going to use a dubbing spinning tool here, or dubbing loop tool, and it just hooks in there and you put material in that thread. The material we're using is a yellow ice dub UV, and the UV, I don't know if I'm totally sold on it or not yet, but it's it looks pretty cool. I don't know if it makes the fish react any differently because it's UV or whatnot, but it has some kind of pearl iridescent look to it, and I like it just because it gives it like the look of an underbelly of a fish. So we're just going to take a couple clumps out of that, and we're going to align them up by just pulling and realigning, and pull those fibers apart and realign it, and just fit it right into that dubbing loop. Probably go with like 3 good sized clumps, and then we'll spread it out over the loop. You just want to get those fibers all nice and lined up. Okay, now we're just going to spread that material evenly throughout the loop. And the way you use these dubbing tools is basically you spin it a good many times, and then let go and pull tight, and it just spins all that material together. We're just going to keep doing that a few times just to make sure everything's nice and solid. And basically you're just like creating your own material loop. Instead of using Chanel or another body material, this is a good way, especially if you have longer fibers. And we're going to take just a chunk of Velcro out and just kind of pluck those fibers out, get them moving. Okay, and we're going to advance our thread all the way forward. Now I'm going to use the rotary function on my vise. You can just hand wrap this, but just a little faster if I do it this way. So we're just going to wind this body out all the way to the front. And we'll take one loop off there. Alright. Just capture that thread, that loop. Okay. And now before we lay this over, we want to comb this out, really just pick out this body and get those fibers laying backwards. And I just love this stuff for an underbody. It's pretty cool. So once you got that all laying back, we go ahead and flip this rabbit strip over, comb your fibers back, and secure that down. Okay, and for this fly I also add 2 legs, actually 3 legs, rubber legs on each side. This is just a jig skirt material you can get from Bass Pro or anywhere like that for making bass jigs. But I take 3 legs and put those on either side. And I also think that kind of adds like a lateral line look to the fly. But they're kind of flopping all over the place when you're stripping it back in the water, so just trim that off. Do the same thing on the other side. Just kind of position them right along the side and trim. And once I get close to this head here, I actually like to use a razor blade and just really get close. We're going to add a deer hair collar on the right here, so I don't like a lot of bulk hanging around, if I can help it. Alright, just make sure everything's nice and secured down there. Alright. Alright, now we're going to add, you can use, I dyed this deer hair myself. It's just like a gray color. I kind of like that color combo, but you can use natural too. It's kind of personal preference. These collars just kind of add some movement, or not movement, but they push more water and make the fly swim a little bit better. And also they kind of make it look like fins, like a sculpin maybe or something like that. So we're just gonna, I took a pretty good sized clump out, maybe a pencil and a half or so thickness fiber and or hair, and we're gonna just stack and line those tips up for the collar. And we're going to go ahead and measure this collar out roughly at first. You don't need to be too long, but then I go ahead and trim it. Give your thread a twist. Just like that. I'll just kind of work that deer hair around the sides. Just like that. Alright, and just do a few wraps because this gel spun thread, it takes a few wraps to get really tight and hold its place. But once it holds, it holds. Alright, looking good. We're just going to whip finish this right behind the cone head there. Just a 3 or 4 turn whip finish. And then also what I like to do, it's hard to get down in that cone head. You can't really add glue without getting your deer hair all glued up and stiff, which I don't like that. So what I do is I just lay a line of glue on my thread itself. So you can see, I don't know if you can see it, but there's just some little bubbles of glue. And all I do is wrap right behind the eye on top of my whip finish with a good bit of pressure. And just that pressure just that pressure makes it solid in there, and it'll just lock up on itself. Okay. And then I'll just take a razor blade and trim those fibers right around, leaving the longer collar fibers. You don't need much trimming on this. It's just kind of getting that first layer of fibers out of the way. Like I said, I fish this for trout mostly, but bass love this thing. I've caught some really nice smallmouth on this fly. And that pretty much does it for this fly. If you like what you see, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and we'll be tying a new fly every Friday. Hope you enjoyed, and hope this fly catches some nice fish for you. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to ask me about it. Leave some comments down there below, and thanks for watching. I appreciate it.